Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women. You know, these are stories from great individuals who have lived a little bit, certainly learned a lot, and we're always so excited that they will share all of that with us. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. I'm Mary Olivier. I am the sidekick to Liz Brohan over here. And I think Liz is going to tell you a little bit about today's episode.
Well, I wouldn't call her a sidekick. That was very sweet of you. And yeah, I'm Liz Brohan. And let me just start with the title of today's show, because on its own, I think it deserves a slow clap because it is just so impressive. It is All My Traumas Are Cool Now.
Which is a sentence that feels very 2026 for those of us who lean into the trauma.
No kidding. And I will say, I'm going to tip my hand, it's very comedy brain centric.
That's because our guest is an improv talent, someone I am totally excited about having here today. And her name is Sophia Java. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Javed.
Javed.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Absolutely. Sophia, thank you for being with us. Sophia is a Chicago-based comedian, right?
Yes.
And she's a storyteller and a writer. So, you know, just multi-talent here. Her comedy is inspired by her life as a brown woman in America. So we got to hear a lot more about that.
And I think I need to correct something because I called you an improv artist. And earlier you said that that's not really your thing. You're more sketch.
I'm a stand-up comedian and storyteller primarily.
All right, so I'm a little off base there. So I wanted to
have done improv and sketch, but I'd say my primary identity as a comedian is a stand-up and storyteller.
Nice. Okay.
Well, you know, speaking of how funny you are, one of the funniest phrases I think you said was when you were talking about your corporate career, and you said that you called yourself a cubicle bureaucrat. Yeah. I loved that.
It was actually government, so not even corporate. It was like
so it's literal.
Yeah, literally a cubicle bureaucult for. That's in the past.
Yeah, but you'll never escape it, right?
No. And that's where the comedy started, I think.
Well, let me tell you just a little bit more about Sophia as we get started into her story. You know, she has performed comedy festivals totally across everywhere in our country. She's debuting her solo show called Latchkey Lark. Can't wait to hear more about that. And she co-hosts Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. When I first heard that, I went, huh?
It's a very specific podcast for a very specific audience, but we have a good time.
Well, so tell us a little bit about that. We just introduced you, but we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
So you said that you're more doing stand-up, that's what you identify with. What is this Latchkey Lark?
Latchkey Larky. Actually, it's Larki.
Oh, Larky.
Sorry.
Okay.
So the Larki means girl in Urdu, which is the language I grew up speaking along with English. It's a language from Pakistan, where my parents are from. And Latchkey is a reference to being a Gen X latchkey kid. And so the show is an extended story. It's kind of an extended storytelling performance with some comedic bits included. I wouldn't say it's straight stand-up or straight storytelling, somewhere in between. But it's a story that comes out of this like a kind of peculiar combination of being of what it meant to be a latchkey kid in the 80s and 90s, but also being a first-generation child of Pakistani immigrants and sort of first gen, that cultural divide that we all went through, not only me, but any kind of first gen kid. But those two combined made for some interesting experiences. And it's just a fun extended story of something that came out of that when I was a kid.
Oh, I love that. I really understand what you mean by stand-up and storytelling combination.
Sure.
Yes, because I think like it's a one-woman show, and from that comes more than just I'm telling some jokes, right? It's a craft. So.
Yeah, and the fun thing about a solo show is it can be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to identify it as a one-woman show or a musical piece or a it's just, it is what it is. So, so that's fun. And I actually debuted it already. I did it backward. I think normally people run a show in their hometowns and then take it to New York or LA. I did it in New York first because I had this opportunity in September on this solo show festival. So it's been done, but this one will be better because
you got to finesse it and stuff like that.
That's exciting. And to have done it in New York first. That's impressive.
Baptism
I did it
by
backward.
fire.
I did it backward. And the exciting thing about doing it here is that we're at the Skokie Public Library next weekend. And I went to high school in Skokie and spent a lot of time at that library back in the day.
So you told your parents the truth. I'd say I was going to the library, but I was not going to the library.
Yeah, I did. I was a nerd. And then I have two of my friends who are also prominent performers in Chicago, one storyteller and one comedian, who also went to the same high school in Skokie, Niles West. So they're going to be opening for me with some shorter performances. Then I'll do my show. And it's just I think it's a cool thing that we're all coming back to do this show.
That's very full circle.
The Public Library has a newly renovated performance space. And it's beautiful and it's free and it's on a Saturday afternoon.
That's super cool.
Sunday afternoon.
So let's pitch it for a second here. You are here after all.
There you go.
It's latchkey, larkey.
It's family friendly. It's not super long. It'll be just a little over an hour altogether.
You managed to do family friendly. I'm impressed. Wow. Yeah, that's
family
great.
Friendly. There might be some just cultural references that younger, because it's about being Gen X. Mm-hmm. But the show's clean, family friendly. It'll be a good time. Two other performers ahead of me. Again, it's Archie Jamja and Anji Kim, comedian and storytellers in Chicago. They run their own shows. And it should be a good time. It should be just a little over an hour. You'll get home in time for the sunset.
And as your T-shirt says,
it's free.
Everybody is going to be a dope-ass female.
A dope-ass female. I know. I like that.
We love it. Right up our alley.
All right. So Liz mentioned all my traumas are cool.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk a little bit, like that cracked me up. Okay. So I watched the song that you sang on main stage at Second City. All my traumas are cool now. And immediately when that came out of your mouth, I just started laughing. Right. But I mean, there's a lot. And I do know a lot of comedians and improvisers and funny people, and it always seems to come from pain.
Yeah.
Right? And so can you talk a little bit about that, please?
I mean, what better thing can you do with painful experiences than make art and share with people? And what I learned through making that song, and even in my stand-up, sort of getting into this, easing into these topics of, I don't know, I think maybe a lot of stand-ups in the course of their career go through this. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just speak for me. You start, and when you first get started, the first couple of years, you're just concerned with I just need to make people laugh. And that first time you make a room of people laugh is the biggest thrill of your life. And you're addicted. I want more. I need more. And so you're focused on, let me just write things that I know will make people laugh. And then that's when you hone your sort of comfortability on stage, your engagement with the audience, all these little skills. It's really a lot to be good on that stage. And once you get comfortable with that, after a number of years go by, I'm in my 9th year now doing stand-up.
That's great.
A little bit longer for stories, but yeah. And I still feel like I'm just barely getting started, right? But you get a few years into it and you think, well, okay, now I'm comfortable talking to the audience. I'm comfortable with my presence on stage. I know sort of like this. I have a sense of what people will laugh at or what people will relate to. And then you're like, let me get into the real stuff.
Gotcha.
And you start being real. And also, I don't know, maybe with age, you don't care if they laugh or not. You just want to, you're like, I'm getting invited to stages.
We know you care. They're going to laugh.
I care. But at this point, you're like, if I'm getting invited to stages and somebody's giving me the stage and the microphone and a bit of cash for the show or whatever, even the space, the audience is there. And if you come from a demographic or a lifetime or a population of people who aren't typically heard from a lot or listened to a lot, then you're like, I have a microphone now and an audience. I'm going to say the things that I've been wanting to say. And so I feel like I've just in the past year or so, couple years, started entering that sort of phase of working through that kind of material. And there's a lot. I think I have many shows in me. It's just a matter of making them.
But it's interesting from a life experience perspective, right? Because first of all, when you're on stage, there is that relationship with the audience. You start to read the room. And that's not just in doing stand-up, but in everybody's daily lives. For our listeners out there, understanding how to read a room and see how you're being perceived and received is an incredible skill, right? I strongly suggest people getting involved in some type of comedy training for that very reason. But I love that you go deeper. Like you're talking about, okay, first it's like, wah, 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 right? But then you go deeper. So talk a little bit about how you found the courage to do that.
That song? Yeah. So the song, so I did the Second City Conservatory program all of last year. And part of that educational process is they teach you about comedic songs from the technical side, how to put them together. But then you have to come up with ideas. And I don't know, that week when we were coming up with ideas for our show, I don't know how the tune came into my head, but it's this concept that we're seeing a lot, thankfully because of social media, which is, a blessing and a curse. But the blessing part of it is now we have access and to all kinds of people, all kinds of people's stories that are being shared. And people are finding each other and relating to each other in ways that we didn't have that access to before social media. So a blessing and a curse. But now I'm starting to see it's not just me. It's like all kinds of those of us who were first gen a while back, and now they have kids. And everybody's saying this. Like there are, for example, Korean creators who are like tagging on other reels of younger people saying how it's cool to take kimchi to school now and everyone wants to share some. And they're like, what the heck? we used to get made fun of. We were like called the smelly kids or whatever. And everybody has this sort of shared experience in different ways. And maybe it's just like a time thing as time passes, things become cool, but you see this new generation and people are, I don't know, you could call it appreciation or appropriation. I don't know where that line is, but it's one or the other. But things that antagonized us, that brought us angst.
They want to know more. They're like, people want to know.
Yeah. And so I sat down and made this list. And so that's where the idea of all my traumas are cool now. That was the title of the song, the chorus. And I started with just like a list of what are the things that me as a South Asian American, a Pakistani American, went through that's cool now. And one of my favorite verses in that song is about fasting.
I died when I saw that. Do you want to share that with us?
I could just do this. Yeah. So there's this like upbeat chorus. So it was really fun to do the song because we did verse and I told them I'm not a great singer. I sing in the shower and they're like, that's okay. And so I would go from like a quick verse that sounds really uppity, and then it would go into this just like rant. They just let me rant and scream on stage. And I would be like huffing and puffing, ranting, and then it would just go into the chorus,
which is cheerful.
So this verse was like, during Ramadan we sat in the cafeteria and watched the other kids eat food. We were hungry and tired and scared of God and surrounded by a pizza bagel mood. And then I go into this rant and I say, but now intermittent fasting is all the rage. I point to someone in the audience like, I bet you do it, right? Yeah, because Joe Rogan told you to. And really, they couldn't let us sit in the library and read a book or something. No, we had to sit there and smell all the food and watch everyone get excited about their pizza bagels. And fasting was supposed to bring us closer to God. But the only thing I ever prayed for was that there would be pizza bagels at iftar that night. And guess what? There were never pizza bagels at iftar. And I'm like screaming on the stage. And then it just goes dun dun dun. All my traumas are cool now. All my traumas are cool.
Oh, God, that's great. Awesome.
Bravo. Yes, thank you.
And I got to tell everybody that you got to look this up on YouTube, right?
It's not there yet, but it's about to be by the end of today.
Everybody. Yeah, because you want to hear the whole thing. It was like 6 minutes long, right?
It was about 4.
Isn't that unheard of
It's
You guys
long for a
know?
sketch.
It's long for a sketch.
That was the
Yeah.
Titan version, but yeah, it was. I'm very grateful for the Second City's conservatory program. It was a great experience, but I'm super grateful that I had a director who supported this song and to have 6 minutes alone on a stage to literally just rant and scream
Hey, listen,
about brown girl traumas
like
on a
it.
Second City stage
I like the ranting.
was incredible.
I mean, think about Bohemian Rhapsody. Nobody
Yeah.
wanted to put that on the radio, but eventually it became like totally
great.
top.
So Mary's predicting this is going to be a big hit.
I think it's going to be a big hit.
Look
but
out.
I'm looking at a question because, I know that we've had previous conversations prior to recording this podcast. And I see this sentence, am I healed or am I just marketable now? And it
nobody's healed. We're never going to be healed. but,
Right.
but you're definitely marketable.
one of the challenging things I find with being a comedian and pursuing comedy is that there's a lot to do. There's the material, there's the art that you want to make, and that's what you want to spend most of your time on. It's just the art and the message, but you're also a business. You're an independent business, right? And so there's a business side of it. And until you make it to the big leagues, you're doing all that on your own.
Of
There's
course.
marketing,
Yeah.
and so everybody has a different marker of what they consider success, right? Is it a Netflix special? Is it mainstream exposure? Sure, everybody wants that. But in the meantime, I am just delighted. Like, I did this song, what did we have, like 4 to 8 shows? I did this song, I'll put it out. But even in the theater, when young brown women came up to me or anyone from the audience and said, I relate to that in all these different ways, or when I do a story or when I do certain bits and people come up, people send me messages after from the audience. They find me on Instagram and they say, I really loved this bit. Or somebody said, I saw you. Sometimes I'll do a show and somebody will come up and say, I saw you like 6 months ago or last year. And I'm still thinking of this other thing you said. That to me feels like is good for me. I'm happy with that.
No doubt.
But
You're
it's
touching
also-
people for
Yeah,
sure.
but because like laughs of familiarity to me are the strongest ones of all,
Yeah.
of acknowledgement, of being represented.
Yeah.
And it sounds like people are relating to, like you said, the Stinky Kids, right? I mean, people are like, gosh, she understands what I went through, but you're putting humor to it. And there's something really powerful about that.
It's very powerful. And I wanted to tell you that ever since I saw you do the song, I wanted to go and sit and think about all the things that I was traumatized over and figure out whether they're cool now.
You got to laugh about it. I mean, even if it's not cool, you got to laugh about it. And I think I feel it's maybe a generational thing. Like, I don't do a lot on TikTok, but every now and then I'll get inspired to make some reels, or when I was more unemployed, inspired to just put some stuff out there. But generationally, like, my instinct is no one's going to care about. So I did this series of more like trauma dumping with jokes. I was like, no one's going to care about this. It's the same thing that everybody else went through. It's not different or special. No one's who cares? Who cares? It's just me complaining about my childhood or whatever, my family or whatever. I've also tried putting up jokes that I've worked on and like more artsy stuff. And those don't get much traction. Once I put the trauma reels, just me in a car recounting things, it's the relatability.
Yes.
It's,
Authenticity,
and it's
that's what
the
it's
exact
so
thing that I was
genuine,
worried
right.
about is the thing that people appreciate. I said, everybody has this. A lot of people have gone through the same thing. Why would they care about my story? But it's all those people who are like, yes, I can understand. And what about this? And what about that? So it's in my head, I just have to come around and see social media from like the younger perspective.
Well,
or
I mean,
something.
people, it's about the authenticity, but as we definitely learned, if anything rings,
Relatability. Is huge.
it's relatability. If anything rings calculated or whatever, the younger generations now can pick up on that in an instant.
Yeah. And they also applaud bravery, They're going to support bravery, people who come out and tell it like it is, that's admired. And now you do it with total humor and grace.
That bravery thing is funny to me because sometimes people will say you're brave, and I all I think is, am I brave or am I just incredibly foolish? I don't.
That is
Potato,
the real
potato.
definition of heroism.
I was going to say a little of both.
A little of both.
Yeah.
Maybe they go hand in hand. But the relatability is also interesting because social media is one thing because you have the whole world and people who will relate will find you. But doing this song on stage, even in working on the song over the course of however many weeks we put that show together, I had an emotional roller coaster about it week to week, day to day, because some days I'd be like, oh, this is good. I really like this. Thanks to the help I got to put it together. But some days I'd be like, is anybody going to care about like who's the audience that comes to these shows? And do I have to break it down or present it a different way? And this is the same challenge that comedians of any kind of other ethnicity or color, POC comedians have. I think I won't speak for all of them, but it's what I have is that I want to talk about my material, my life, the thing. I think it was Carlin who said, maybe don't quote me on the show because I'm not sure, but some comedy great said, write about things, the things that are antagonizing you. And sometimes over the years, I would think, let me stop writing about brown people things. Like, let me write regular jokes so that I could. But even when I sit down to try to write about a non-cultural topic, my take on it comes back to, in the end of the joke, something from my experience. So it's there. It's not going to go away.
It's not going to go away. Well, they say that about writing in general, just that write what you know, write your experiences, right? I think it's important for our listeners to hear also is that what you're doing in comedy can be very true for a lot of people, like questioning whether anybody's going to care. I think that's really interesting. I remember when Liz was my boss, and she's like, I want you to contribute more to writing blogs on marketing expertise for our website. And I would sit there in my mind and go, nobody cares what my point of view is. I'm not writing a blog. Who's going to read that, right?
Because I cared.
No, but Liz cared. But that feeling, I think, is important to speak to. That feeling of like, why would anybody care? And then we put so much of ourselves into it. And then what if they don't? Right?
And there's a little bit of imposter syndrome and all of that for us as women.
It came out of our experiences, right? I mean, we'd been doing what we did for years and years and years. And yours was always a fresh voice. And so didn't want to hide it, right?
But so there's more to you than the comedy, right? So this is what we discovered. And I was really struck by this about your work. Is how many different worlds you've lived in. You've lived, in an Uzbek village? Guantanamo Bay came up. Working with marginalized queer communities in Pakistan. That's particularly meaningful to me. Tech startups, Russian power lifters who may or may not have been skinheads. So tell us a little bit more about, let's expand your story because you are so much more than that.
Each and every one of those.
In a nutshell.
Boy, how much time do you have on clock? Yes, I have had many experiences, I suppose. And it all comes from this, I don't know, maybe just this willingness to be open to, and this incredible lack of plan or ambition from a young age. Because, some people are like, I'm going to be a doctor and that's it. And I had no idea. And for a while I thought I did, and it was journalism, and I went to journalism school and did that. But timing being what it is, I graduated at the turn of the century, 2001, with a degree in print newspaper journalism. And now I think, where were all the adults in my life?
Telling you not to do that.
To tell me not to do that. Where was this whole, and it was like a prominent university with a prominent program. And I'm like, what were they thinking? They were just taking our money. Did they know? And then I had to pay all that back. And then, shortly after I got that incredible credential, the industry started, disintegrating or changing in fundamental ways. And I got distracted. And so I didn't do that. But the training, don't get me wrong, that training from that program is continues to be valuable in everything I've done since. But I don't know. I just kind of stumbled. I see it as stumbling through. And there were reasons for every step that got me to those places. But sort of not knowing what to do, stumbling, making decisions haphazardly, and then an opportunity would come and I'd say, okay, that sounds cool and I'm bored here, so let me go do that. And then the end of it is a Pakistani woman, first gen woman who has done a lot of things that people like me typically don't do, which I think is cool and I lean into. I've also tried to do the things that they do typically do, like software engineering, and that was short-lived.
There were some crazy choices.
There were crazy
in all of
choices.
this. I mean,
and some of it I get into in the telling of those stories. For example, you'd asked about the Guantanamo story.
dying to hear it.
Well, the story that I tell on stage is about a particular experience that happened there, but it's hard to talk about any of that in stand-up, because in stand-up you have maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 20 something, and you can't just be like, okay, this one time at Guantanamo. You have to like, what? Yeah, exactly.
It's going to take a while.
So even in the 15-minute story or 10-minute story, I have to find a way to talk about it. But I ended up there because I see it as a sequence of poor choices. But I did that degree. I had a degree in journalism. My father had passed away in my senior year of high school. So I sort of even did that degree just because I didn't have a lot of mind space at the time to do a proper college search. And I kind of knew I wanted to do journalism, and it was a good school, and I got in early. Boom, we did it. I was like, don't have to worry about it. Went there. Then I had to work a lot during college to get through it. And then I was tired, and I didn't want to do a real world job, and I had no money when I finished. And here's another fun thing about journalism that nobody told me about was I went to this expensive private university, took out loans and everything for a career, which starting salaries for cub reporters is what was like pennies.
I was paid 35 cents a column inch.
Exactly. So I'm like, you either have to be like super privileged or just struggle through it. And I was tired already from working and going to school. I was like, I don't want to do that yet. And I didn't know what to do. So I joined the Peace Corps, which I had like a mentor, a teacher in high school who spoke to us about it, and it was always kind of been
that sounds like
in
a
my
cool
mind.
choice.
Well, okay, so people see it so you can see it in different ways. People are like, oh, you know, that's so giving of you. That's so, you volunteered your time to help unfortunate people in another country. Or you could see it the way I see it is like, I didn't know what to do and I had no money and I didn't want to have to live in a city to work at a newspaper and pay rent and for car and figure out how to do all that with a low salary. So like, let me push that off for a few years. I saw it as like, makes Peace Corps sound very bad. It's not. But I saw it as, you know how people go to prison for three hots and a cot or whatever?
3 hots and a cot.
I was like, let me go do this Peace Corps and have a nice experience and learn some things about the world, about myself, but also not have to pay for rent and food and whatever.
Gotcha.
And my loans will be deferred. So I did that, and I ended up in Uzbekistan in Central Asia, a former Soviet country. And I ended up in this little village where in a region of the country that there were 4 languages being spoken intertwined at any time. And some people would find that maddening. I loved it. I still am a language nerd, but back then I was young and had more of a spongy brain. So I leaned in, I learned it all. There was no one in my village that spoke English except the one sort of English teacher I was supposed to be working with. My job was to teach English to those kids at that school in the village. I did that terribly. And instead, I just learned all of their languages and hung out with them. Yeah. Right. And then we get to the end of that, and it was late 2004. I'm finishing my service in this tiny village. And for some reason, I want to stay in Uzbekistan. I wasn't ready to come back. I still didn't know. I hadn't made any progress in what am I going to do after this. Nothing, but I still had no money to my name and whatever. And I was like, let me try to get a job and stay in Uzbekistan for a little while. This was the early 2000s. There was very little sort of nonprofit presence in that country. And it was very, just a small amount of opportunity. And so I went to the capital, knocked on doors, tried to talk to people. I wasn't getting anywhere. And one time when I was in the capital at the Peace Corps office, somebody was like, oh, down at the base, they're looking for Uzbek speakers. Down at the base meant in 2004, there was, we're not there anymore, but there was a small air base in the south of Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has a very small southern border with Afghanistan. So by late 2004, the Americans, our military, was sharing this. It was an old Soviet air base, but they're sharing it now with the Uzbeks. Tiny, tiny, just as like a support base for trucks and supplies and food going down to Afghanistan. And they shared the base. They had the outside, or they had the inside. The Uzbeks had the outside. They needed interpreters with the logistics. And they're like, but you got to be an American. You got to have a security clearance. So I was like, all right, let me go down and talk to them. I went down, talked to them, then signed a thing and started, basically went home, came home for a couple months, got a security clearance, tested in the defense language, whatever, for Uzbek and Russian, and then went back, went and worked at this tiny little base on a DOD contract. As a DOD calls them linguists. I think that's
generous
offensive to people, to academics who have PhDs in linguistics, but they call them linguists. They're just interpreting and translating. And that job was just a lot of logistics and a lot of alcohol fueled relationship building dinners between officers. Then we had to translate it all. And at the end of the night, I was just making stuff up because everyone was
Drunk.
too wasted to even know.
So funny.
I was like, they don't know what I'm saying. Nobody knows. Whatever.
It's
I'm
fine.
kind of
It's
just,
good.
I'm
That's
loving
another story.
your haphazard approach to living your life.
It's still
Yeah,
happening.
it's
now.
like where the wind blows.
But I think that's really good. I think it's important. Not everybody is like, I'm driven and I've got this plan and everything like that.
Well-
to embrace where it went for you is important.
Yeah, and that was, I don't know if I did this consciously, but 2004, if someone says the U.S. military has a real big need right now, not real big, but has a need for American citizens who are fluent in Uzbek, who can get a clearance, that need is not ever going to happen again, I don't think, unless we
That's
start
true,
another
but it
war
would make
in
most
that
people
region.
run for their lives.
Right? And I was like, well, I'm that. And there's 5 of us. And the others came too to start doing that. And the big joke was we went Peace Corps to War Corps. But I was like, okay, but War Corps is going to pay my bills for a little bit. But, which is, I know, I sold out. I know.
It's okay. It's called service,
I
and
don't
we
like, yeah.
appreciate it.
We can repackage
And then from
that.
there,
Yeah.
I finished at that base, and now I'm in this like cleared network of American Uzbek speakers at this weird, unique time when they need Uzbek. And somebody goes, that base ended up shutting down for political reasons, but I finished my time there, and or at least our presence. And they were like, hey, they're looking for an Uzbek speaker down at Guantanamo. Now we're at 2005, 2006. And I know all the people who are qualified for this job. They're all friends of mine. Like, we're in this network. And I was like, and I thought, and it wasn't a light decision. The money was great. The opportunity, they're gonna give you a house on the island. It's a proper naval base. All this stuff. The setup was great, but
Yeah,
I was
big
like,
but.
it's Guantanamo, you know, and
Yeah.
I know what's happening. At that point, 2004, 2005, we all knew all the bad things that were happening
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Didn't come out. But again, I was like, this is an opportunity. They need Uzbek speakers. I'm an Uzbek speaker. For better or for worse, what's happening there, the place itself, is part of our history in this country. And not everyone's going to get an opportunity to
see
go
it,
and
yeah.
see it. And, you know, I still had like a writer brain, a journalism brain that I was young. I was like, I probably will never be able to write anything about this, but it's a chance to go
Yeah.
and see it.
It makes sense.
And then I sort of told myself also, and this is part of the story I tell, it sounds hokey now, but I still kind of believe it a little. It's like, look, those guys that I'm on the inside of those cages or cells, whatever they want to call them, they deserve to speak to people who not only learned their language at like a defense language school somewhere in Monterey, but someone who's lived in their culture, someone who understands their culture, their background. And you know, I was only like 3 years in that village, but it's more than the other people who would come.
That's a great perspective.
You know what I mean?
It's so, yeah, honestly.
And so I told myself that that's going to be my focus. That's going to be my mindset, and I'm going to go check it out. And I did I was there for a year. I was ready to re-up for a year. A lot of interesting things about it was a wild year, a lot of things still in my brain. And I'm only now 20 years later starting to tell some of the stories that happened there. So I should put that story up on YouTube too. So we'll
at some point, I think that would be great. I mean, I think it's important. I think really, if we're gonna try wrapping up right now, no, don't. It was really fascinating. Don't apologize, never. But what I think is important is for people and kick-ass women the world over to understand is, I love what you said about mindset shift, right? Because sometimes you're going to be in places either that you're happy to be in, but it's not going the way you want, or you are struggling with a glut of conscience or something like that. Like, ooh, is this the right thing for me? Sometimes we do have to reshape the way we're thinking about something and reposition it in our heads. And I think that's really a good piece of advice for people to think about. It's just like, let's take the whole thing in. Don't just react.
Yeah.
And maybe look at it as an opportunity. Where the rest of us would shy away or be extremely fearful. You went, hey, I can do that.
I thought, why not?
That's a great perspective.
And I want everybody to hear that. Like, you can do that, right? You can do it. You can do it. Honestly, I think it's pretty fascinating. You've had a fascinating life so far.
Honestly, on both of those two notes, fascinating life and I can do it. I think I need to receive that message myself these days. Because now I'm doing another crazy thing. Not crazy. It's a totally normal thing. But I'm in training with CTA right now to be a bus operator. And I just passed my CDL test yesterday on the bus.
Congratulations. I would be terrified to drive.
I am terrified. It was a barely pass, but hey, a pass is a pass. I didn't hit any curbs.
That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Right. Don't hit people. Don't hit curbs.
Yes. And now we're going to start driving routes with passengers for the next bit of training.
Way to go.
It is terrifying.
But think about all the different types of people you'll be able to meet. What exposure, especially for comedy. You're going to have stories.
So that's not why I did it. I got into it again in a very haphazard way. And I thought to myself, it's been 20 years and I'm still doing things this way. Or 40 years or whatever, and I'm still doing things this way. It just was a thing I stumbled into, and then I started it, and it turns out it's really intense. I feel like I've done hard things, but this is maybe one of the hardest things.
Is to drive a bus.
Just the whole process of this training and to drive the bus.
We're sure you're going to slay it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Catch me on the north side routes. I'll be driving on the north side routes in Chicago.
We will. I'm going to totally be looking for you.
And there's lots of places we're going to find you, right? We're going to find your song on
Public
YouTube.
Library.
We're going to go to the public library, but we hope Latchkey Larky becomes such a big success.
Thank you.
That you have to take it on the road.
Oh,
right?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
While we're looking you up on YouTube and hearing the Guantanamo Bay story and singing your song. So we want you out there more.
All that stuff will be up on YouTube soon. Very soon.
Good.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks, this was Sophia Java. I said that correctly. Okay.
Brilliant.
Sophia Java. Look her up, follow her on her social channels, and follow us too, right, Liz?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have a unique connection with Sophia. We actually met, Sophia and I, at a Women Belong luncheon, right? So I want to thank Women Belong for being our sponsor.
Yes.
They are a connective tissue for women, right? They're a huge community of great women who like to talk about how to be successful, ways to be an entrepreneur, and just ways to support one another. So please look them up. We couldn't be more thankful for them bringing us Sophia and for being our sponsor. So until our next episode, everyone, you stay connected too, okay? And stay kick-ass.